Received a late-night call from a hospital. My wife was brought in from a private gathering. When I arrived, the nurse pulled me aside and whispered, "Her X-ray. You need to see this." I took one look, then pulled out the legal papers I had been carrying for months. It was a Thursday, just a regular workday. I got home around 6 p.m., and Sarah was getting ready to go out. She told me she had her monthly book club meeting. This wasn't unusual. She'd been part of this club for years. They'd rotate hosting at each other's houses, discussing the latest novel over wine and snacks. I didn't think much of it. She kissed me goodbye, said she'd be home late, and left. I spent the evening helping the kids with homework, watching some TV, and eventually putting them to bed. Around 10 p.m., I went to bed myself. At about 11:45 p.m., my phone rang. You know that feeling when a late-night call jolts you awake, and your heart immediately starts pounding because it's never good news? Yeah, that. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and saw Northwestern Memorial Hospital on the caller ID. My stomach dropped. "Hello?" I answered, my voice groggy and anxious. "Mr. Thompson?" A woman's voice responded. "Yes, this is he. This is Nurse Emily from Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Your wife, Sarah, has been admitted. She was brought in from a private gathering. She's stable now, but we need you to come in." A private gathering? That was odd. She said she was at a book club. My mind raced with questions, but I managed to ask, "What happened? Is she okay?" "She's stable, sir. The doctor will explain more when you arrive. I'll be there as soon as I can." I hung up, threw on some clothes, and called my neighbor to come stay with the kids. Thankfully, she was awake and came over immediately. I drove to the hospital, my mind spinning with worry and confusion. When I arrived at Northwestern Memorial, I parked and rushed to the emergency department. The receptionist directed me to Sarah's room. As I walked through the sterile hallways, the smell of antiseptic filled the air. The bright fluorescent lights made everything feel even more surreal. I found Sarah lying in a hospital bed, looking pale and disheveled. She had an /4 in her arm and a bruise forming on her cheek. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Mark," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "What happened?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Before she could answer, a nurse entered the room. "Mr. Thompson, could I speak with you privately for a moment?" I nodded and followed her into the hallway. She led me to a small consultation room and closed the door. "I'm Nurse Emily," she introduced herself. "We conducted some tests and X-rays on your wife. There's something you need to see." She handed me an X-ray film. Now, I'm no doctor, but even I could see there was something unusual. A foreign object was clearly visible. "What is this?" I asked, my throat dry. She hesitated. "We found this lodged internally. It's not uncommon in certain situations. Given the circumstances of her admission, we thought you should be aware." I felt like the floor had been yanked out from under me. My mind raced, trying to process what I was seeing and hearing. "Can you tell me how she got here?" I managed to ask. "She was brought in by ambulance from an address in Lincoln Park. The paramedics reported it was a private residence hosting a gathering." Lincoln Park? That didn't make sense. Our book club friends lived in the suburbs, not the city. "Do you have the address?" I asked. She gave it to me. It wasn't familiar. "Thank you," I said, barely above a whisper. I returned to Sarah's room, my emotions a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and betrayal. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "Mark, I can explain." I held up a hand. "Save it. I need some time to think." I turned and walked out of the room, out of the hospital, and into the cold Chicago night. I stood there, breathing in the crisp air, trying to clear my head. After a few minutes, I pulled out my phone and searched the address the nurse had given me. It was a townhouse in Lincoln Park. I found a real estate listing for it, recently sold, upscale, definitely not a place any of our friends lived. I didn't know what to think. My wife, the woman I'd trusted for 15 years, had been at some private gathering in a stranger's home, ended up injured, and now there was this X-ray showing. I couldn't even wrap my head around it. I got back in my car and just sat there, staring at the steering wheel. Memories flooded my mind, our wedding day, the birth of our children, family vacations. Had it all been a lie? I didn't go back into the hospital that night. I couldn't face her. I drove home, relieved the neighbor, and sat in the living room in the dark, waiting for morning. The next day, I arranged for the kids to stay with my sister. I needed to deal with this without them around. I went back to the hospital in the afternoon. Sarah was sitting up in bed, looking anxious. "Mark, please let me explain," she pleaded. I sat down, feeling numb. "Go ahead." She took a deep breath. "It wasn't a book club." I lied. "I've been seeing someone. It started a few months ago. I never meant for it to happen, but it did. Last night, we had a party at his place. Things got out of hand. I drank too much and I fell. That's how I got hurt." I stared at her, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. "Who is he?" "His name is David. I met him at the gym. He's a trainer." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So, while I was home with the kids, you were out with him?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Mark. I never wanted to hurt you." I stood up, unable to contain my anger. "You didn't just hurt me, Sarah. You destroyed our family." I walked out of the room, not looking back. Over the next few days, I tried to process everything. I consulted a lawyer and started the divorce proceedings. Sarah moved out and went to stay with her parents. We agreed to joint custody of the kids, trying to keep their lives as normal as possible. It's been a few months now. I'm still picking up the pieces, trying to move forward. Trust is a fragile thing, and once it's broken, it's hard to repair. I'm focusing on my kids and my work, taking it one day at a time. A few weeks after Sarah moved out, things started to feel quiet. Too quiet. The kids were adjusting better than I expected, but I knew they sensed something was off. They asked questions. "Why isn't Mom sleeping here anymore? Did she do something bad?" I did my best to stay calm and tell them the truth in pieces they could understand. "Mom and Dad are working through some things. We both love you very much." That's all I could say. I thought the worst was behind me. But then something strange happened. One afternoon, I got a call from the school. My son had gotten into a fight. Not like him at all. He's usually the quiet, thoughtful one. When I got there, the principal told me he had punched another kid in the lunch line. Said the kid told him his mom was a bad lady, and that his dad didn't want her anymore. I froze. I asked my son what happened. "He said you hated Mom and she's with other guys," he whispered. He said everyone knows. That hit me harder than anything Sarah had done. Somehow, word had gotten out. I wasn't sure if it was gossip from someone at the hospital, or if Sarah had been careless. But the damage was done. I called Sarah that night and told her what happened. She didn't sound surprised. In fact, she sounded defensive. "Mark, what do you expect? People talk." I didn't say anything, but David's friends know. And maybe his ex said something online? I can't control what people say. I was stunned. "You're still seeing him?" There was a long pause. "Yes." I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't say another word. I just stared at the wall for a long time. I had been hoping, maybe stupidly, that once reality hit her, once she saw the family fall apart, she'd pull back, realize what she was doing. But no. She was digging in deeper. A few days later, a new message popped into my Instagram inbox. It was from a woman named Hannah. "Hey, you don't know me, but I think we need to talk. I'm David's ex. I saw your story on Reddit. I have proof Sarah isn't the only one he's been sleeping with." My blood turned cold. I messaged back immediately. "What do you mean?" "Proof?" She replied almost instantly. "Screenshots. Photos. Voice messages. Hannah had a whole folder of them. David had been with multiple women, Sarah included, at the same time. The kind of guy who lived for chaos. He bragged about it to his friends. Called himself a collector. There were messages where he laughed about wrecking a marriage and watching the husband pick up the pieces. I sat at my desk staring at those messages, not knowing whether to throw up or punch a hole through the wall. The worst part? There was a picture. One I hadn't seen before. It showed Sarah and David in the same townhouse she got taken to the hospital from. But in the background, barely visible, were two more people. A man and a woman, both partially dressed. My chest tightened. It hadn't just been an affair. It had been something else. Something darker. I didn't know if Sarah was fully involved or just caught up in it. But now, it wasn't just about a failed marriage. This was about safety. My kids. My name. Our reputations. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I called my lawyer and asked him a question I never thought I'd have to ask. What are the legal steps if I want to fight for full custody? His tone changed immediately. Tell me everything. Every single detail. So I did. I showed him everything. The X-ray. The hospital notes. The messages from Hannah. The photo. He was quiet for a while. Then he said, "This changes everything." Sarah had no idea what was coming. The next time we met in person was at a scheduled parenting coordination session. She walked in confidently, dressed like she was heading to brunch, not a custody hearing. When I pulled out a printed folder and placed it on the table, her smile faded. "What's that?" she asked. "Proof," I said quietly. "That you lied. And that it's worse than I ever imagined." The coordinator opened the folder and started reading. Sarah looked from me to the documents, her face slowly draining of color. "You went through my messages?" she hissed. "No," I said. "One of your boyfriend's exes sent them to me. She wanted me to know what you were part of." Silence. Then she started to cry. But I didn't comfort her. I couldn't. Not anymore. That night, I went home and looked at my kids as they slept. I realized something. I had been living in damage control mode, just trying to survive day by day. But now, I had to go on offense. I had to protect them, from gossip, from their mom's reckless decisions, from whatever this mess really was. And it was a mess. Because 2 days later, Hannah messaged me again. "Just a heads up, there's a video. I haven't sent it yet. It's bad. I don't think you've seen everything yet." I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone. The screen stayed black. But my thoughts didn't. The next morning, I opened Hannah's message again, reading the words over and over. "There's a video." I didn't know what I was expecting. I wasn't sure I wanted to see it, but a part of me needed to. Needed to understand the full scope of what Sarah had done. How deep the betrayal went. How bad it could really get. So I messaged her back. "If you're willing, send it. I need to know everything." She didn't respond right away. Hours passed. I went through the day like a ghost, barely noticing the people around me. I picked the kids up from school. I smiled, nodded, talked to them about homework, but I wasn't really there. Finally, late that night, my phone buzzed. Hannah had replied. "I wasn't sure if I should, but you deserve to know the truth. Here it is. Just be prepared." There was a file link. I stared at it for a long time before finally clicking play. It was taken with a phone, in that same Lincoln Park townhouse. The camera was shaky, like it had been hidden in a corner. At first, all I saw were a few people talking and laughing. Sarah wasn't in the frame yet. Then she walked in. The outfit she wore was one I recognized. She had worn it out that night, telling me she was going to her book club. Seeing her in that setting, next to people who were clearly high, drunk, and not even trying to hide what they were doing, it made my stomach churn. But that wasn't the worst part. David was there. And so were at least 4 other people, 2 of whom were definitely married. I recognized one of them. A guy named Paul. He worked in my building. We'd had lunch together before. We'd talked about our families. Sarah sat on the couch next to David, and they kissed, deeply. Then someone handed her something. I won't say what it was. It was illegal. She took it without hesitation. The camera moved briefly, and I saw something written on the wall in neon paint. No limits nights. This wasn't a party. It wasn't a casual meet-up. It was a scene. A weekly one, from the sound of it. And my wife, the mother of my kids, had been part of it for months. There was no X-ray mystery anymore. I knew what the nurse had seen. I knew what Sarah had done. I stopped the video halfway through. I couldn't watch anymore. I felt sick. Shaky. My hands were cold. I walked to the kitchen and threw up in the sink. Then I turned off all the lights, sat in the dark, and stared into nothing for a long time. In the morning, I sent the video to my lawyer. His response came within the hour. We're filing for emergency custody. This is more than infidelity. This is about endangerment. I agreed. But just as I was starting to feel like things were shifting, like maybe I could get some control back, another twist hit. That afternoon, I got a knock on my door. I opened it to find 2 men in plain clothes holding badges. Mr. Thompson? Yes? We'd like to ask you a few questions regarding an ongoing investigation. It involves a residence in Lincoln Park you may have heard of. I didn't say anything. My chest tightened. They continued. We believe your wife might be involved, and since you're listed on some of the shared assets, we need to speak with you. Shared assets. My name was still on the house, on the cars, on the accounts. And if Sarah had used anything of ours, money, resources, to participate in anything illegal, I could be dragged in too. The questions they asked weren't about cheating. They were about money. About who paid for what. About whether I had knowledge of purchases made with our joint accounts. Credit cards. Transfers. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just betrayal. It was potential criminal liability. I told them everything I knew. I showed them the video Hannah had sent me. I handed over the screenshots, the photos, all of it. They thanked me and left. That night, I dug into our finances, really dug in. Sarah had been careful. Nothing obvious. But there were a few payments that didn't make sense. Large cash withdrawals. One labeled Fitness Retreat. Another labeled Women's Circle Contribution. I brought it all to my lawyer. Can she drag me down with her? I asked. His answer chilled me. If we don't separate your finances quickly, it's possible. I started the process that day. Freezing joint accounts. Removing myself from anything I could. Creating a paper trail to prove I had nothing to do with her activities. I hadn't spoken to Sarah since the last hearing. But the next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. When I checked it, her voice came through, low, rushed, and scared. Mark, I messed up. They came to my parents' house. They're looking into everything. I need to talk to you. Please call me back. I didn't. Because for the first time, it wasn't about saving her. It was about saving myself, and protecting my kids from the storm that was still coming. A week after the agents showed up at my door, things started unraveling fast. Sarah got served with the emergency custody paperwork. She showed up at my place the next day, unexpected, uninvited, banging on the front door. I sent the kids to their rooms and stepped outside to meet her on the porch. She looked rough. No makeup. Eyes red. She was shaking. You're taking my kids away from me. She spat. After everything we've been through? I'm protecting them, I said steady. From your choices. From your lies. From that video. Her voice cracked. I didn't know he was filming. I didn't know it would get out. That's not the point, Sarah. You were there. You were a part of it. You exposed yourself to drugs, to dangerous people, while still being a mother. You lied to me. You lied to them. I messed up, okay? I was lost. I was angry. You stopped seeing me. There it was. You think this is my fault? I said, laughing bitterly. You could have talked to me. Gone to therapy. Asked for space. But you joined AF ****ing swingers group with cokeheads and got yourself hospitalized. Her voice got louder. You don't know what it's like to feel invisible in your own home. The front door opened. My son was standing there. His face pale. Mom? Sarah's eyes widened. Sweetheart, go back inside, please. He didn't move. I saw it, he said quietly. What? She whispered. I saw the video. Some kid at school sent it to me. Said his brother found it online. Silence. Sarah looked like the ground had collapsed under her. She stumbled back a step and sat down on the porch steps. No. I didn't say anything. I just walked to my son, put my arm around him, and pulled him inside. I closed the door on her sobbing. I locked it. The fallout was fast and vicious. The school got involved. The other parents whispered. I had to talk to teachers, principals, guidance counselors. I kept things simple. There's a situation with my ex-wife. Please protect my children's privacy. My lawyer told me to prepare for the possibility of Sarah losing all visitation temporarily. She was under investigation now, not just for the drugs, but for the environment she exposed herself to. Hannah had spoken to authorities too. It became bigger than just a divorce. It became a case. Through it all, Sarah tried calling, texting, voicemails, all ignored. Then one day, I got a call, not from her, but from her father. He was an old-school guy. Retired cop. We'd never been close, but we'd respected each other. Mark, he said, I'm not calling to defend her. What she did, I'm ashamed of it. But she's broken. She needs help. She should have thought of that before she blew up her life. I said. I agree. But if she ends up in jail, what will that do to the kids? What will they remember? Think about that. He wasn't wrong. I hated that he wasn't wrong. That night, I watched an old video on my phone of our daughter's 5th birthday. Back when Sarah and I were still happy. We were laughing, dancing with the kids. Her smile was real. I remembered that woman. I remembered the good parts. And I hated that I still did. The hearing was held a month later. Sarah showed up with her lawyer, hair tied back, dressed plainly. No makeup. She looked small. I had my lawyer, my sister, and my own mountain of evidence. The judge listened to it all, watched part of the video, with the courtroom cleared, read witness statements, reviewed school reports, the agent's notes, the hospital report. At the end, Sarah was allowed supervised visitation. Twice a month. A third-party service would monitor. She cried, but didn't argue. Afterward, we ended up in the hallway alone. I don't blame you, she whispered, for hating me. I don't hate you, I said. I just don't trust you. And I don't think I ever will again. Her eyes searched mine. Do you think someday the kids will forgive me? I took a breath. They're kids. They'll always love you. But it's not about forgiveness right now. It's about healing. And you've got a lot of work to do. She nodded, then turned and walked away. Now, months later, things are quiet again, but in a different way. I still feel the cracks in the foundation of my life, but I'm slowly rebuilding. The kids are doing better. They ask less often about their mom. When they see her, they come home quiet, thoughtful. My son has a therapist. My daughter clings to me more. I let her. As for Sarah, last I heard, she checked herself into a recovery program. Not just for the substance use, but for therapy. She sent a letter. I haven't opened it yet. Maybe one day I will. People ask me if I'm angry. I am. But not in the way I used to be. It's not the white-hot, fist-clenching rage anymore. It's a dull ache. A sadness. A disappointment. And weirdly, a sense of relief. The truth is, I spent years living in a lie I didn't know was there. And now, finally, I see everything clearly. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll fall in love again. Maybe I won't. Maybe my kids will grow up stronger because of all this. Or maybe they'll carry the scars. But I'll be here for them. Always. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: sometimes, the person you love the most is the one you know the least.